Dream cards, dream cards, dream cards where your fantasy bookings come true.
And Donnie, now it's time to do our first ever dream card. Like I mentioned at the top of the program, we're calling this a Badass Crockett Cup. It's going to be a Crockett Cup style format, 24 teams of some of the toughest, roughest brawlers, hardcore icons, Japanese strong style aficionados, and everything in between that just screams badass. And I am so pumped because there's so many badass tag teams in the history of wrestling. And a lot of them, unfortunately, they wrestled in different eras or different promotions. And there's so many dream matches out there that's why fantasy booking exists. And I think this is going to be one of the best tournaments ever done in fantasy booking.
Yeah, they're going to leave a lot of people wishing they could actually see this happen. So hopefully it all turns out for the best in our first run at this.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the hope, I should say. So laying down a few ground rules for this specific tournament, we're going to keep it pretty loose. It is a podcast talking about a fictional wrestling contest. So I think we're okay. We don't have to be sticklers here, but really focus in on the greatest tag teams that kind of fit this mold. We're going to have a couple rules. Number one, the tag team has to have at least tagged one time in a major organization. And the term major organization is pretty loose. John's independent promotion at the corner in a warehouse down the road, not really, but it doesn't have to be WWE or WCW or All Japan. We're okay with things like GWF or CWA or even CZW, more the modern kind of big indies. Totally fine if you want to include those. So that's cool. The other thing is no duplicates. If I take the Faces of Fear, unfortunately, that rules out the Powers of Pain. So no duplicates in the tournament. That could be something a roadblock to look out for. We might have some trouble there. And other than that, like I said, we're going to follow the 1986 Crockett Cup. This is going to be coming to you live from the New Orleans Superdome, and it's going to be a morning and an evening show. We're not going to delineate which were the morning matches and the evening matches. You can use your imagination. Tony Schiavone and Dave Crockett will be on the call for this one, and it's only going on VHS. We're not going to broadcast this one live. We want to keep with the time-honored tradition of Crockett Cup 86.
All right.
So the first thing that we have to do, and this is what I'm really excited for, is run down our 24 teams. We're going to say them in order of seedings. We're going to rotate. I'm going to control one half of the bracket. Donnie, you're going to control the other. They're going to culminate in a giant main event for the first ever, Wrestling Life Support Dream Card Series Crockett Cup-esque champion. We'll work on the title at a later date, and you'll be able to control the finals and book it. We're going to go into some detail on the matches, on the finishes, and who goes over and how they do it. Was it clean? Was it dirty? Was it a long match? Did one team really showcase some big time skill versus the other? Probably no enhancement talents, though some enhancement talents were for pretty big badasses. Chris Duffy, definitely one that we mentioned at the top of the show. And then we'll go through the bracket. And then, at the end of the day, we'll have one champion, the most badass tag team in the history of wrestling, as stated by the Wrestling Life Support podcast.
All right.
Sound good. So here's the fun part. We're going to start with the seeds. Number one, Donnie, who is the number one seed in the entire Badass Crockett Cup Tag Team Tournament?
Oh, I think anybody that follows my look at tag team wrestling, I think it's a dead giveaway. And plus, Crockett Cup 86 is what we're referencing a lot. So how could the Road Warriors not be my number one choice?
If I had the number one pick, I would have also selected the Road Warriors. I think had we not, we might have been, banned from podcasting wrestling for the future. Yeah. So
I agree. Blasphemy.
Great pick, Hawk and Animal. Multi-time champion, basically wherever they went, except in Chicago in 1987. Outside of that, they're, usually pretty successful. Sorry to bring that one back up. So for the number 2 seed, which is mine, I'll have the number 2 and 3 seed. Donnie, you'll have number 4. We're going to do this in an order. So like I said, each side of the bracket is given to one of us. I'm going to go with what I think is the most badass tag team of all time outside of the Road Warriors. That's the 5-time All Japan Pro Wrestling Tag Team Champions, former WCW and NWA World Tag Team Champions. They won the World's Strongest Tag Determination League in 90 and 91, a Wrestling Observer and PWI Tag Team of the Year in 1992. That, of course, is Terry Bam Bam Gordy, Dr. Death Steve Williams, the Miracle Violence Connection. They are my number 2 seed in the tournament.
It's a great choice. That's actually who I had listed second on my list.
Awesome. So my number 3 pick is a little bit interesting. I think this is probably going to cause a lot of controversy, but you know what? I don't care. It's my podcast. It's your podcast. We'll do whatever the hell we want to. My number 3 team, a 2-time, well, in this incarnation, a 2-time World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champion, the second longest reigning champs of all time. Here comes the Axe. Here comes the Smasher. Axe and Smash, Demolition.
Good choice.
Okay, Donnie, you have the next 2, seeds 4 and seeds 5. And to remind everybody at home, the top 8 seeds get a bye. The next 16 participate in the first round to see who faces those 8 teams that got the bye.
Next team I had selected is probably a team that nobody knows of unless they saw Japanese wrestling, but it was one of those pairings you looked at and said, wow, who could beat that team? And I'm talking about Bam Bam Bigelow and Vader.
Yes, big, bad, and dangerous.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and those 2 were, you look at them individually and 2 of the baddest dudes on the planet, and they, of course, did win the IWGP Tag Team Championships on one occasion. So they have the hardware to back up the claims as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then number 5.
The next team I think I'm going to go with is internationally known. Maybe at the time they weren't looked at as so much badasses, but I mean, you look back and realize they really were compared to today's wrestling, and that's the Steiner brothers.
I absolutely think that they fit the bill of a badass tag team. I mean,
I think the colorful attire back then kind of threw it off a little bit. They looked like a little more fan friendly, but when it came down to dropping somebody on their head or super back body dropping a 400-pound guy, they got it done. So definitely meet the criteria.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be a badass to win 7 NWA WCW World Tag Team titles, 2 in the WWF, 2 in New Japan, the IWGP titles. They were a 2-time PWI Tag Team of the Year. They won the Pat O'Connor tournament. And so that says it all right there. I mean, that list of titles is just badass.
Pat O'Connor is a podcast in itself. We'll talk about that later.
Of course. No doubt about it. So as the 6th seed, I'm actually going Japan on this one. And I think a lot of folks would have this team in the top 3 or 4 probably. That's the Holy Demon Army, Toshiaki Kawada and Akira Taue, a 6-time All Japan Tag Team Champion. They won the World's Strongest Tag Determination League in 96 and 97. They were part of the Tokyo Sports Match of the Year in 95, the Tag Team of the Year in 97. They have 8, count them, 8 5-star matches by the Wrestling Observer. Those 2 dudes would drop people on their heads and punch people in the face. They are some tough dudes. And the Holy Demon Army comes in at number 6.
Yeah, I think any team that competed in that era, it's probably the era of badasses in Japan at that time. It was just unbelievable how the type of matches they had.
Agreed. And I have a feeling we might not go through this entire 24 tag teams without seeing their heated rivals, but I don't know. Maybe not. So the number 7 seed, I'm going with a little bit of a different era, a team that has a lot of history. I think they hit their tag team stride in the 70s, and that's the Crusher and Dick the Bruiser, a 5-time AWA tag team champion. They won the NWA International tag team titles as well. You know, both are in the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame also as a team. And, you know, what can we say about the Crusher and Dick the Bruiser, a PWI Tag Team of the Year in 1972, huge in Indianapolis, huge in the upper Midwest, and then huge in any wrestling circle that, you know, that holds its weight.
Yeah, definitely a team that set the tone for an entire era. I think even up until the 80s, they were still teaming up. So, yeah, they definitely fit the bill and represent an era that might not be otherwise represented very well in this tournament.
And then the last team to get a bye in the first round is yours, my friend.
That's going to, let's see, I got to think on this one. I'm not looking at the brackets, so I got to think a little bit. Okay, I'm going to pick back up with the 70s team as well. I think maybe the only one that I had on the list, and that's going to be Larry the Axe Hennig and Harley Race.
That is maybe the 2 of the most manly men that ever stepped foot in the ring. Holy moly.
Exactly. Guys that would not be messed with in any era, most likely.
And deserving of a bye. I mean, like I said, nobody's going to question that as well.
There you go.
So those are our 8 teams. To recap, our top 8 seeds that will all get buys in the first round. You have the Road Warriors, the Miracle Violence Connection, Demolition, Big Bad and Dangerous, and that's Big Van Vader and Bam Bam Bigelow, the Steiner Brothers, Holy Demon Army, the Crusher and Dick the Bruiser, and then finally Larry Hennig and Harley Race. Wow, that's badass.
Sets the tone for sure. And we still have more to come.
So we got our top 8 seeds, and now we're going to run down teams 9 through 24. And then we'll, as we go through the tournament, we will go through the pairings, and we'll have the Baddest Crockett Cup. So the 9th team, the 9th seed, Donnie, is yours.
All right. Well, this team, looking back, maybe should have went into my first choices, but we'll throw in some randomness in there because probably arguably maybe even the most badass tag team in the whole tournament, even challenging the Road Warriors, which is a pretty bold statement, and that's Bruiser Brody and Stan Hansen.
Yes, I was wondering when they would pop up. Controversial, they're not in the top 8. World's Strongest Tag Determination League champion in 1983. They won the PWF tag team titles and a 2-time NWA US tag champ. Maybe it's the fact they didn't win a lot of big gold. I don't know, but they are about as tough and crazy and just will kill you as any team out there.
Maybe it's just it doesn't matter where their place is going to kill everybody anyway, and it doesn't matter where they are in the tournament.
Exactly, but they will have to have one more match than teams like the Road Warriors and the Miracle Violence Connection and the Holy Demon Army. So maybe that will pay off. Maybe it won't.
True. Well, we shall see.
So the 10th and 11th teams are mine. And for team number 10, I'm going to go with a throwback. We've talked about them on other podcasts. Listen to these credentials. 3-time WWF Tag Team Champion in every Hall of Fame you can imagine. 3-time Mid-South. 2-time Stampede International Tag Team Champions. They held the NWA National Tag Team titles, the AWA Southern Tag Team titles, which was part of the CWA, and that's Afa and Sika, the Wild Samoans.
Yep, doesn't get much more badass than them.
No, and they will not only drop you on your head, then they'll bite your face off. So the next team I'm going to use, we alluded to them earlier, the arch nemesis, the rivals of the Holy Demon Army, and that's Kobashi and Misawa. A 2-time All-Japan Tag Team Champions. They won the World Strongest Tag Determination League 3 times, 93, 94, and 95. The awards and the accolades are limitless. They were in the PWI Match of the Year. They were Tokyo Sports Match of the Year and Tag Team of the Year twice. There's not a lot of teams that can stack up favorably to Kobashi and Misawa of All-Japan fame.
They were on my list as well. They could have been in the first 8, but they're definitely contenders, had to be included in the tournament somewhere.
Cool. And number 12 and number 13 are yours.
All right, first team I'm going to go with because we've talked about them a little bit due to shooting back to a famous memory of destroying a jobber or enhancement talent, as we call them here on this show. That's the Skyscrapers, Sid Vicious and Dan Spivey.
Yeah, Sid and Spivey, so tough, so huge. That one match is one of the greatest matches of all time where they destroyed, was it Mike Blackwell?
I believe so.
Yeah, I know that he teamed with Al Clifton, a.k.a. Avalanche, with no E at the end. So
right.
Spivey and Vicious, had they had a longer run, they didn't win any gold, but I don't think that ruins the fact that they were 2 of the biggest and baddest dudes on the planet.
And the fact that they were in the ring with the Road Warriors and the fans were so excited just to see the visual of that match, that really stood out. And Sid's injury took them out, unfortunately, early, but they did have a brief comeback. And even then, it just seemed like they were prone to be a badass tag team around the globe if things had worked out better.
Agreed. Okay, so you have number 13 as well.
I think I'm going to probably have to steal one from you on this one because I know you had these guys on your list. But the Faces of Fear, I think inside and outside the ring, these guys have the reputation of being 2 of the biggest badasses in wrestling. So got to include them.
Yeah, I didn't have the Faces of Fear because I actually was leaning towards the Powers of Pain because, I'm a huge fan of the Warlord. And, I love Ming Haku as well, but I was probably leaning Powers of Pain over Faces of Fear. So
I had that internal struggle too, but I think the Warlord might be a little more mild-mannered outside the ring, and the Barbarian and Ming have the outside the ring reputation as well. I think the Warlord, not so much maybe.
Oh, that's totally fair because, nobody's tougher than Haku.
There you go.
So with the number 14 and 15 picks, seeds, number 14, I'm going something a little bit different. A lot of fans might know this team, but may not be intimately familiar with them. And you probably don't think of them when you think of badasses, but they are legitimate shooters and amateur wrestlers and will tie you up in knots, break all your bones without even breaking a sweat. And that's the Red Bull Army. That is Salman, Heshimakov and Viktor Zangief. So these two Russian badasses made their names in New Japan. They had a long run terrorizing New Japan. A lot of the U.S. fans might know them from the 1990 Pat O'Connor tournament, and where they went to the second round and ended up losing to, I believe, the Great Muta and Masa Saito, I believe. So the Red Bull Army, they're just two really tough guys that have legitimate credentials.
Yeah, a little international flavor never hurt. I always was interested in seeing the best international teams facing each other because you wouldn't see them on an everyday basis.
And also the one thing to note is Heshimakov is also an IWGP heavyweight champion, the first European to hold the title.
Wow.
So after the Red Bull Army, and hey, maybe they'll get the Holy Demon Army. That has marketing appeal right there. I'm going to go with former IWGP Tag Team Champions, one of my favorite teams, and I think pretty unheralded, at least in the States. Two guys that when you just look at them, you're like, yeah, I don't want to go anywhere near those guys. They will mess you up. And that's the Jurassic Powers, Scott Flash Norton and Hercules Hernandez.
Yeah, actually I had them on my list too. I knew they would be on yours. They probably a team that nobody realizes was actually a team back in that day. But if you had your wrestling magazines, you were informed that they were a dominant tag team.
Yeah, I mean, just look at them.
Yep.
Just, muscles upon muscles, and just they would just squeeze your head and crush it like a grape.
There you go.
Great. So we are now on to the 16 and 17 seeds, which will be you, Donnie.
Okay, once again, I'm going to go with the team that probably at the time wasn't looked at as badass necessarily because of the roles they played and maybe the colorful attire they wore, but the British Bulldogs, Davey Boy Smith and Dynamite Kid, I think they fit the tough guy role and nobody was going to mess with them, and international stars as well.
That's a great pick. Yeah, I mean, just because it says badass doesn't mean it has to be brawlers and guys like these guys obviously were masters of the ring, and Dynamite Kid, as everybody knows, could do about anything he wanted to in the ring. And Davey Boy, I think it's a bad rep for his later years, but man, the guy could go early on. Yeah,
they had some great singles and tag team matches over the years.
Great. So number 17 is you.
So for the next one, I'm going to go with maybe not a regular team that maybe you think of as a tag team right away, but I think they fit the rules. They did team at least once, and they proved that they were definitely badasses because they not only fought wrestlers, but they also fought the cops, and that's Ken Patera and Masa Saito.
That's a great team. Yeah, I mean, would not have made my list just because when think about them, to your point, but yeah, nobody will challenge you on that. On the 18 and 19 seeds, so for number 18, I'm going with a former NWA WCW Tag Team Champion. They had a couple different looks, a couple different managers. I'm going with the masked version managed by woman. I'm going with Ron Simmons and Butch Reed of Doom.
Nice. I actually thought of them too. They were two guys that definitely wouldn't be messed with. I don't know if the masked version was more or less badass. I'm not sure, but nonetheless, badass is all the same.
Cool. And then for the next one, I'm going back to Japan, and I'm going to a tag team that you have a former sumo champion, you have a legitimate martial arts master, a badass in Yoshiaki Yatsu or Tolo Yatsu and Jumbo Tsuruta. That team, a lot of people don't think about them, but they were 5-time All Japan Tag Team Champion. They won the World's Strongest Tag Determination League in 1987. They were the Tag Team of the Year by Tokyo Sports and a former NWA International Tag Team Champion. A lot of people know Yatsu from his world-class days as Tolo Yatsu and had the big rivalry with Kabuki, but Tsuruta and Yatsu come in at the 19th seed.
Nice, good choice.
And then number 20 is you, Donnie.
I think for the next one, it's another example of having to dig a little bit deeper of guys that I have actually teamed, but definitely not a team that you would think of. But when I think of badasses, I had to get the one guy at least on there, so I figured I'd put them together. And the one guy that had to be on this tournament, being a badass tournament, is Dr. D. David Schultz and his tag team partner, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff.
That's a great team. Dr. D, if this was a singles tournament, he might be the number 1 seed.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you're just talking about badasses, I mean, he comes to mind right away.
Yeah, for sure. And a great team in Orndorff, no stranger in his own right to scuffles and backstage brawls.
Exactly. So it fits the bill perfectly.
Okay, so number 21, you have 2 more seeds left. You have the 21st seed and the 24th seed. So the final 4 into the tournament, who's number 21?
I think for that one, I'm going to go with maybe not who you think of a badass too much, but overall, yes. I mean, and for both guys really, but Andre the Giant was maybe the ultimate badass in the ring because nobody was going to mess with him. And one of his favorite partners for me personally was Hulk Hogan. So I'm going to go with those two. I don't think those were guys that anybody was going to mess with. So I think they still fit the bill and they could go with anybody. Probably had matches with a lot of guys in this tournament.
Yeah, and if you just think of badass teams, I mean, it doesn't get more iconic and badass than two of the greatest wrestlers, most popular wrestlers, most important and influential wrestlers in the history of the sport. So yeah, hard to argue with that.
And of course, two guys that could turn it on in Japan too. They could entertain in the US maybe, but in Japan, if it came down to a showdown with a badass team, they really turned it on.
Agreed. So coming in at number 22 is a team that won so many regional titles in the NWA in the 80s specifically, but they also had a big run in Puerto Rico, winning the World Wrestling Council World and North American Tag Team titles. They are two-time UWF Tag Team champions, which might be their most acclaimed run, in at least in the States for sure. I'm talking about Luke Williams and Butch Miller, the Sheepherders. Not the Bushwhackers. We're only using the Sheepherders version in this tournament, so there's going to be some blood, some guts, and early hardcore.
Let's be clear on that. People got to do their research if you're not sure what we're talking about, because there's a definite difference between the Sheepherders and the Bushwhackers.
Exactly. And then my last pick here, coming at number 23, and I had a lot of honorable mentions that I was going to throw out there. I'm going to hold on that because I have a little bit of surprise after you pick number 24. But for my last pick, I went back and forth between two or three teams, but I decided to go with a throwback. Probably maybe the only team here that won the WWF Tag Team Championships. They also won the NWA American and Texas Tag Team titles and had the run with the WWA in Indianapolis back in the Dick the Bruiser, the Crusher days. And that's the Blackjacks, Blackjack Mulligan and Blackjack Lanza.
Wow, great choice. Definitely guys that look like badasses if anybody did.
Exactly. And so the last team in the tournament, who's it going to be?
I think I'm going to inject just a little bit of ECW influence since we've kind of missed over that a little bit. But I mean, legit badass guys. If you watch early ECW, I think the Bruise Brothers were really two guys that came to the ring looking like they were going to possibly murder the crowd too, because that's how badass they were. They had a bunch of different iterations in WWE, but the ECW version was really one that jumped out at me as far as guys that were badasses that were ready to kick some ass. So I'm going to throw the Bruise Brothers in for some ECW representation. Yeah,
that feud with Public Enemy was epic.
Yeah.
And of course, the Bruise Brothers came to fame in Smoky Mountain. They won the tag team titles there. So, they had some success outside of just looking like two just giant killers that were going to destroy you.
Yeah, very Bruiser Brody-esque pretty much as a tag team. Twin Bruiser Brodies is pretty intimidating.
So before we get into the actual tournament, I didn't mention my honorable mentions because we do have an alternate bout. I'm going to throw two teams out there. You're going to pick the winner right now. You don't have to go into the match. You have to say which team wins here. And the alternate, you can use them in the tournament at any point in the tournament.
Wow.
Whether it's my match or your match, it doesn't matter. You can overrule my decisions. If you want there to be an injury, you can call for a run-in and put somebody out of commission or a team out of commission, or hell, you can even say that they overslept. You can insert the winner of this next match at any time, or you don't have to at all. We can say it's a dark match, an alternate match, but it's your call. You're the only one with this godlike, omnipotent power. So here's the teams that are going to make the alternate match. You're going to have on one side the Headhunters, Mofat and Mahim. These two massive, Abdullah the Butcher-esque type wrestlers, but they could do moonsaults, had a huge run in Puerto Rico and Mexico. They won the CMLL tag team titles over there. And in Japan, a lot of people know them from their FMW days, winning the Brass Knuckles tag team titles. They also won the Wing tag team titles twice and the NWA North American tag team titles. So I'm going with the Headhunters, Headhunter A and Headhunter B, Mofat and Mahim, no matter what you call them, those two dudes could mess it up. And so across the squared circle from the Headhunters is going to be a team that, surprisingly, I don't know how this team didn't do more in wrestling. They only had 2 matches in their history. They won their first one, and then the second one they lost via disqualification. I think they're two of the biggest tough guys, and one has an Olympic medal to prove it. And that is in the Global Wrestling Federation, the team of Bad News Brown and Big Bully Busick.
Wow.
Deep cuts there. Deep cuts.
Yep. If might have listeners doing some research on some of that.
Exactly. And if before you guys go do your research, they beat the team of Private Terry Daniels and the Patriot, who, went on to have big run in GWF as the North American champion. They ended up losing to the Youngbloods by disqualification in that same tournament, and they never tagged again. It's Bad News Brown's MO to just kind of run out. Maybe he did that to the bully, but Alan Code, won a bronze medal in judo in the Olympics. He can take care of himself. And of course, the infamous story of even Andre back down to Bad News when there was allegedly a racist comment said. So a notorious tough guy. I'd put him right below Haku probably in the baddest dudes to mess with. And then Big Bully Busick is a former power lifter and, once again, could probably squash your head like a grape. So the alternate match, the tag team of Big Bully Busick and Bad News Brown against the Headhunters A and B. The winning team will be your alternate. Donnie, who goes over in this epic encounter to start off the Baddest Crockett Cup?
I'm going to go with the Headhunters on this one. I think Bad News just proven he can't team with anyone. I think the Headhunters might bring a little hardcore to it. And Big Bully Busick, I don't know. He didn't get a chance to prove himself as much as some of these other guys. He might be the downfall in this tournament. But the Headhunters, I think, are the ones that are going in.
Great. So they're your alternate tag team. Once again, to reiterate, Donnie, you have total control and can insert the Headhunters at any time or not at all. If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense.
Got it.
Cool. So we're going to open it up. And now as we go through the matches, we're going to rotate one for you, one for me. It's not going to go in a progression where the winner of this match will face the winner of the next match we talk about. I'm going to bounce around a little bit just so it's not you talking for an hour and me talking for an hour.
Gotcha.
So we'll open up with the first match. This matchup will determine who faces in the second round our number one seed of the Road Warriors. So it is number 16 and number 17. The seeds are very close to each other. The British Bulldogs, Davey Boy Smith and the Dynamite Kid, going up against Ken Patera and Masa Saito.
Quite a showdown.
So who goes over in this match?
I'm going to go with the British Bulldogs on this one. I think they're the longer running tag team. I think they would pull out a victory here.
Pretty clean match. Do the Bulldogs, is it back and forth? Do the Bulldogs kind of sneak one out, or is it a kind of a clean finish where they hit a big move and do their thing?
I think it'd be a typical heel and face tag team match. I think Patera and Saito would dominate it in the middle, but the Bulldogs would eventually make a comeback and probably hit a clean finish, I think, in this one.
Great. So the next match on the other side of the bracket is mine, and it's the 15 seed against the 18 seed. So that match is the Jurassic Power, Scott Norton and Hercules Hernandez against the team of Doom. This one visually is going to be pretty amazing.
Yeah, no doubt. Magazines, get your cameras ready.
I think this is a relatively short match, not uneven. It's very even match, but just some heavy hitting. These guys aren't going to go too long. They're all big and, heavy breathing and stuff. And I actually going to have the first upset of the day. So the Jurassic Powers are in control. Herc and Norton are doing their thing. But the difference is woman gets involved, trips up Hercules Hernandez. Ron Simmons hits him with a power slam, gets the quick win. Doom bails out, runs out, celebrates, and Doom advances to the second round over one of my favorite teams in the history of professional wrestling, the Jurassic Powers.
Wow, the woman factor is definitely a difference.
Exactly. And in the next match, the winners of this 9 and 24 seed matchup will face the number 8 overall seed, which is Larry the Axe Henning and Harley Race. So the 9 and 24 teams will end up facing those guys in the second round. And I'm already kind of foaming at the mouth to see what the second round matchup could be, because the number 9 seed is Stan the Lariat Hansen and Bruiser Brody. Wow. And they'll be going up against the Bruise Brothers. So you have the Bruise Brothers, the Brody-esque gimmicks against Bruiser himself. This is an amazing match. I wish this match would have happened.
I can agree there. Wow, that's a sight for sure.
So who goes over in Hansen and Brody against the Bruise Brothers?
I think this one's an all-out brawl. I think Hansen and Brody on the way to the ring make it clear that they're just pissed off that these guys look like Brody. So even more reason to kick their ass. But I think this match doesn't even have any tagging. I think there's just a wild brawl. And I think in the end, Hansen would probably hit the lariat on one of them for the 1, 2, 3 relatively quick. And I think Hansen and Brody move on fairly easily.
And we're getting what could be the greatest second round match in any tournament of all time.
Let's move it to the finals. Just move it to the finals.
I know, right? Hansen and Brody against Henning and Race. Oh my gosh. So on my side of the bracket, the winner of this match will face the number 7 overall seed, which for those that don't remember is the Crusher and Dick the Bruiser. And so this will be the 10 seed and the 23rd seed. So you have Afa and Sika, the Wild Samoans, against the Blackjacks, Mulligan and Lanza. So actually of the same era. That one worked out kind of in a good way where, these two teams 100% could have faced each other and their paths could have crossed back. And I don't know if they ever did.
I'm not sure if they did, but I could definitely see it at the Garden being a big tag team match for sure.
Okay, so number 10 seed, the Wild Samoans, Afa and Sika with Captain Lou against the 23rd seeded Blackjacks, Blackjack Lanza, Blackjack Mulligan with the Brain, Bobby Heenan there. I think the managers kind of negate each other's presence. They get into a little bit of a scuffle. They try to mend fences. At the end of the day, it's all a distraction. Afa and Sika are able to sneak a chair in the ring, get a shot on Lanza, and go in for the win. I would say probably a 8 to 10 minute brawl, nothing too crazy. And the Wild Samoans advance to face Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher in the second round.
They learned their lesson with that chair. No bloopers or bleeps here.
Exactly right. So your next match will be the 13 seed and the 20 seed. And the winner of this match will face the number 4 overall seed, which is Big Van Vader and Bam Bam Bigelow, Big Bad and Dangerous. So you have the number 13 seed, which the Faces of Fear, and they'll be going up against Dr. D. David Schultz and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff.
I think it's a heavy hitter pretty much with these guys because just trying to see who can inflict the most pain is going to be a big factor here. I think in the end, the deciding factor is Schultz and Orndorff just can't get along. Schultz ends up turning on Orndorff and beating his ass, leaving him laying, walking out. Faces of Fear just take the pin pretty easily and don't even have to put much effort in. Save it for the next round because they'll need it.
Absolutely, because they will be going up against Bam Bam Bigelow and Big Van Vader.
There you go.
So the next match, this is going to be a pretty good encounter because it's New Japan versus All Japan. It's the Red Bull Army, the team of the two Soviet grapplers against Jumbo Tsuruta and Yoshiaki Yatsu. I think this is a classic wrestling match. I think it might go on a little long, maybe some boring chants that don't understand, these different more martial arts based and amateur wrestling based combatants. Once again, the diehard fans will appreciate it, but Yatsu is caught and hooked by Hashimikov, and he gets the win via submission. So the Red Bull Army, the 14 seed, goes on and will face the number 3 seed, which is Demolition.
Wow.
So the next match for you, I think this will be a good one. I think you'll love this one. If this one would have happened in real life, it might have been the greatest match of all time visually. And that's the number 12 seed, the Skyscrapers, Dan Spivey and Sid Vicious, against the number 21 seed, the 8th wonder of the world, Andre the Giant, and the immortal Hulk Hogan.
Wow. And who will they face? The winner faces?
And so the winner of this match will go on to face the number 5 seed, which is the Steiner brothers.
So I think this one, Hulk and Andre, they're used to dealing with giants. Skyscrapers maybe haven't had enough time as a team to take on such a high-level tag team in Andre and Hulk. So I think Andre and Hulk are going to take this one. Skyscrapers may get the advantage a little bit, but Hulk's going to Hulk up. The Skyscrapers are going to may try to double team him. Andre cuts off Dan Spivey. Hogan hits his big boot leg drop and gets the win to move on.
Great. I think that's how I would have seen it as well. In the last match of the first round, I think this wins the award for biggest clash of styles. You have Kobashi and Misawa, the 11 seed. So, the most strong style of all strong style teams against the hardcore sheep herders.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know how this one looks. I mean, honestly, there's sometimes I think of what would have happened if the Necro Butcher would have fought Dan Severn. There's just some things that I can't visualize what would have happened in the ring. This is one of them. So I'm going with Kobashi and Misawa in kind of probably a lackluster, kind of have to fill each other out, don't know exactly what to do. But at the end of the day, Misawa and Kobashi get the win, but the sheep herders are just upset. And they continue the fight afterwards, and they bust up Misawa pretty good. They bring out some of the tools and cut up his forehead a little bit. There's a little bit of blood after the fact. At the end of the day, they run off. Kobashi and Misawa are, a little hurt, but they got the win, and it sets up a match that's happened multiple times with the number 6 seed, the Holy Demon Army. So you're going to have Kawada and Taue against Kobashi and Misawa in the second round.
Wow. quite a second round it's shaping up to be.
Exactly. So we will get on to the second round, and we open up the second round with the number 1 seed. That's right. The Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal, the Legion of Doom, against the number 16 seed, the British Bulldogs, Davey Boy Smith and the Dynamite Kid.
I think this is a dream match for 1987. This is one of those that you put on there and want to see the best from the NWA against the best for the WWF. I think the Bulldogs would they would hit some of their power moves in the Road Warriors and maybe shock them early a little bit. But in the end, I think the Road Warriors would take this one with the Doomsday device, probably on Dynamite Kid, and work on his neck and back area, which have been notably injured over the years. But I think the Road Warriors in the end would pull this one out.
Great. Yeah, that would have been a huge upset, even though the British Bulldogs are, Hall of Fame worthy tag team, taking out the Road Warriors in their first match after a bye, after the Bulldogs had such a hard fought victory over Patera and Saito. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So the next match I have, I'm going to go and tell you this one, it's not a squash by any means, but it is probably a 70% to the team with the bye, 30% to the team that just came off a really tough match, which was an upset in its own right. And that's the Miracle Violence Connection. They come in there, they do their deal. They knock out the team of Doom fairly easily. You get a backdrop driver on Ron Simmons and they cover it. The Miracle Violence Connection advances to the next round to face the winner of Dick the Bruiser, the Crusher, and the Samoans. So Miracle Violence Connection holding up their end of the bargain as the number 2 seed in the tournament.
I can totally see it. Makes a lot of sense.
So the next match is the one I've been looking forward to, and that's the number 8 seed, Larry the Axe Hennig and Harley Race against the number 9 seed, Stan the Lariat Hansen and Bruiser Brody. How does this one happen?
I think this is pretty much a dream match. I mean, these guys are going to be, again, going all out. Brody and Hansen probably pissed off this time because they have a team that other people may be seeing as more badass than them. So once again, they come to the ring just all hell breaking loose. Another brawl, I think, pretty much. But I think they're used to this kind of action. They're used to tournaments and the Japanese style. So I think they can pull this one off. I think maybe Brody takes Race to the outside of the ring. They brawl all around, and Hansen once again hits a lariat on Larry the Axe Hennig and gets the win.
Wow, the number 9 seed advancing over the team with a bye. That's awesome. So the next match in the card is Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher, the 7 seed against the Wild Samoans. I think this is a great match. I think the crowd's confused on who to root for. Eventually, just because Albano is so annoying and probably drunk off his ass, the Bruiser and the Crusher are kind of the default fan favorites here. They have an epic match. This goes 22 minutes of wild, insane brawl. And once again, it's the captain that's the difference. And another team that got a first round bye falls as the Wild Samoans take out Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher in a mild upset.
Wow, I would say so, especially if Captain Lou's drunk.
Hey, sometimes, a lot of people always claim they can drive better drunk, which they can't, by the way. Maybe he can manage better drunk and actually deliver on that.
Things that make you ponder life on the Rest of the Life Support podcast.
So the number 4 seed, Big Bad and Dangerous, Big Van Vader, Bam Bam Bigelow, former IWGP Tag Team Champions, going up against 2 of the most legitimate badasses in all of wrestling, Ming and the Barbarian, the faces of fear.
I think this is going to be a battle of size versus strength here, pretty much. Vader and Bigelow are a little more fresh, and I think that might be the only factor. I think it's a hard-fought battle, and there's no clear-cut victor throughout the match until the very end, and Vader maybe hits a Vader bomb on the Barbarian eventually to get the win.
That would be a great match, though. I mean, there would not be a shot in there that wasn't going to leave a bruise.
Oh yeah, it'd be an edge of your seat type of match for every move they did.
So the next match is the number 3 seed overall Demolition, Axe and Smash, not Crush, against the number 14 seed, the Red Bull Army, the team from Russia. Maybe not as bad as Kobashi and Misawa against the Sheep Herders, but also a very clunky Clash of Styles match. Basically, if you guys watched the Pat O'Connor Tag Team Tournament, you know what I'm talking about with the Red Bull Army. Unless they're in that more kind of shoot style, it's going to be odd. So this one goes back and forth. It's more of a feeling out process, a lot of submission attempts from the Red Bull Army, but Demolition gets the win. They look pretty strong, but ultimately this is a 6-minute match. It's bad. the fans hate it, and Demolition does their best because of the great entrance music to keep the fans on the edge of their seat. But at the end of the day, Demolition wins, not a Matt classic. This is one that Dave Meltzer will rate a dud, but Demolition advances and goes on to face the winner of the 6 and 11 seeds.
Makes a lot of sense. Team with the more color is ready for these further rounds. I don't know how the amateur style would do too well here.
Exactly. So now we have the number 5 seed, the Steiner brothers, and the lowest seed left in the tournament, the number 21 seed, Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan. So you have the Steiners against Andre and Hulk.
Yeah, this would definitely be the Steiners' biggest challenge because they may be able to hit some suplexes on other guys, even 400-pounders, but doing it on Andre the Giant's another story. I think this one, it's tough to call. I mean, the Steiners have the tag team expertise here for sure, but I don't know. This is
your classic. Two amazing single wrestlers that don't have as much tag teams experience. I mean, I know both had tag team success in various incarnations, Andre and Baba and such, against the prototypical tag team specialists that have basically, outside of a few teams, an unmatched trophy case when it comes to tag team wrestling.
Right. So I think that's why while Andre and Hulk come to the ring, we're going to see the Headhunters come down right behind them and sneak attack Andre to take their spot in the tournament. They're going to bust Andre open. They're going to knock him to the floor, and nobody's able to pick him up, and they're going to be taken out of the tournament, and the Headhunters will replace them in this match.
Wow. So now we have, out of nowhere, the alternate team, the Headhunters, who I think upset the team of Big Bully Busick and Bad News Brown, if you ask me. The Headhunters come in, they knock out Andre, blood him up, they get into the spot, and now they're facing the Steiner brothers, the number 5 seed, against the alternate, the Headhunters.
And the Headhunters are coming in fresh, of course, a big advantage, but they're coming in hot, doing all their moonsaults. The Steiners can hit the belly-to-back suplexes, the belly-to-bellies and all that. In the end, the big show of strength is Scott Steiner getting the Headhunter up on his shoulders, hitting the Bulldog off the top rope, and the Steiners pull it off and actually beat the team that inserted themselves into the tournament.
Yeah, I will say the Headhunters, they're not known for their intelligence. If you're going to beat up a team, they should have beat up the Steiners because Hogan and Andre already wrestled and the Steiners were just as fresh as them. So Headhunters, not thinking there. They're not using their heads.
I think they were pissed off that Andre and Hulk aren't an official tag team, but we're still putting the tournament above them.
I think that's fair. I think that's absolutely fair. And in the last match of the second round, I mean, I don't have to say much about this because every match that they've had has been basically a 5-star classic. It's the HDA, the Holy Demon Army of Kawada and Taue against Kabashi and Misawa. Now, the difference here, it's probably, one of the most epic encounters. The difference here, though, is Misawa still a little banged up from all the extracurricular activities from the sheep herders in the first round. That's just enough as Kabashi and Misawa fall to the Holy Demon Army. I'm sure Kawada dropped somebody on their head and pinned them. So an epic match, still got a lot out of the Holy Demon Army. They're not fresh anymore, but that sheep herder attack on Misawa was the decider, and the Holy Demon Army goes on to face Demolition in the next round.
Getting into the later rounds, these guys are showing some damage now.
Exactly. So we're in our final 8. We're into the final 8 teams. We have a few lower seeds left, but for the most part, it's been pretty chalk. It's followed the seeding pretty standard. We have 2 teams that didn't have buys in the first round that made it, and that would be Brody and Hansen and the Wild Samoans. All the other teams with buys and were able to advance to the round of 8. So the first match, the number 1 seed, the Road Warriors, against the number 9 seed, Bruiser Brody and Stan the Lariat Hansen. How is this not the main event of the entire show? I don't know. But wow, in the round of 8, you get Warriors against Brody and Hansen. I'm kind of getting some NWA tag team title vibes where you have the Steiners and Gordy and Doc early on in the bracket, not the finale. So I'm getting that here, those vibes.
Yeah, this one is it's the dream match pretty much for badass tag teams, I think, and the bracketing just forced it early, but this match is the ultimate. Like I said, it would be the dream match to see actually happen, but I think this one probably the wildest brawl to date. Brody and Hansen have set the tone for brawls in this tournament. I think this one would be the wildest, all over the building, totally uncontrollable. And I think maybe in the biggest swerve of the night, the referee just can't control it, throws it out, and both teams are eliminated.
Wow. Thrown out.
Or if you want to take the backstage approach, maybe we'll just say neither one of these teams was going to lose in this tournament. So, hey, this is what you have to do sometimes.
It happens almost every tournament, and the Crockett Cup was probably the most infamous for it. You have the double countouts, the draws, the double DQs, and things getting thrown out and just kind of upset the tournament. So, wow. And then also the headhunters, not a lot of foresight here because they could have filled in their spot and gone to the next round. So, the headhunters, just so many mistakes.
Yeah, no doubt. And it goes to show anything can happen in these tournaments because my favorite tag team of all time just got eliminated.
Well, mine didn't even win the alternate match, Busick and Brown. So whatever.
There you go. Proof.
No sympathy. No sympathy here. On the other side, the number 2 seed, the Miracle Violence Connection, actually doesn't have a problem with the Wild Samoans. The Samoans had been hanging on by the skin of their teeth thanks to Captain Lou. They won some really big matches, especially that one over Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher, but also against the Blackjacks in the first round. They had been facing kind of these more old school, late 70s, early 80s teams, and they just walk into the Miracle Violence Connection, and Doc and Gordy are primed and ready to go. We get an interesting finish here as Terry Gordy hits the Asian Spike on Sika and gets the win. And then he goes around and he hits it on Captain Lou outside the match. In about 7 to 8 minutes, the Miracle Violence Connection looked dominant, and they go on and advance in the tournament to the Final Four.
Wow. Was Captain Lou sent into a drunken convulsion?
Exactly. So this next match is important because the winner of this will go straight to the finals. And that's the number 4 seed, Big Van Vader and Bam Bam Bigelow, Big Bad and Dangerous, against the number 5 seed, Rick and Scott Steiner, the Steiner brothers. The winner going all the way to the finals.
Wow. I'm pretty sure this match happened in Japan. This is one of those magazine, big time, wish I could watch this type of matches. I think the Steiner brothers just had a rough go with the unexpected headhunter match that they just went through, and Vader and Bigelow are primed and ready. I think they would dominate this match pretty much. Steiners would make a comeback, but ultimately they'd end up taking the pinfall to Bigelow's headbutt off the top rope.
Wow. Obviously not an upset. They're the higher seed, but I think a lot of folks would have thought the Steiner brothers would have taken it, but I love it. I mean, Vader and Bigelow in Japan, it's hard to beat that.
There you go.
And the last match of the final 8, you have the number 3 seed Demolition against the number 6 seed, the Holy Demon Army, and that is Kawada and Taue. I think this is a great match. I mean, poor Demolition, they haven't got the match to showcase their skills because they're stuck with the Russian team, not actually the Russian team with the Koloffs, but the Red Bull Army, the team from Russia. And then they get full strong style. Now, Axe and Smash are tough dudes. They beat the hell out of people, but the strong style approach of Kawada and Taue throw them off their game. The match goes long. It goes about 12 minutes, but the Holy Demon Army advance over Demolition in a mild upset. Depends on what part of the world you live in and what promotions that you follow. Some would say it's blasphemy to think that anybody could beat Kawada and Taue outside of Kobashi and Misawa, but they get the win here, and the Holy Demon Army wins over Demolition, setting up our final 3 going into the tournament finals.
Wow.
So you don't get a next match, Donnie, because of the draw, Big Bad and Dangerous go all the way to the finals, and that's where they will face the winner of the number 2 seed, the Miracle Violence Connection, and the number 6 seed, the Holy Demon Army. They've had different approaches. The Miracle Violence Connection had a little bit easier of a road with a beat-up Doom and then a Wild Samoans team that just had been sneaking by. And so they're come in relatively fresh as a team could be at this point. And the Holy Demon Army, though they had a bye, had to go up against Kobashi and Misawa and Demolition, a much tougher road in my estimation. And a lot of physical toll was taken, especially in that Kobashi Misawa match. With that being said, they put up a hell of a fight. This goes deep into the night, and the Miracle Violence Connection almost loses on about 7 or 8 near falls. But at the end of the day, it's a backdrop driver from Dr. Death on Taue. He covers, he gets the 3 count, and he goes to the finals to face Big Van Vader, Bam Bam Bigelow in an All Japan, New Japan dream match.
Dream match personified.
So now we have the finals to crown the first ever Wrestling Life Support Dream Card Badass Crockett Cup-esque tournament champion, and that is the Miracle Violence Connection, Terry, Bam Bam Gordy, Dr. Death, Steve Williams. This team, their credentials are pretty much endless. Like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, a 5-time All Japan Pro Wrestling Tag Team Champion. They were WCW and NWA champions. They won the World's Strongest Tag Determination League in 90 and 91. They were PWI and the Wrestling Observer's Tag Team of the Year in 1992. They are two of the biggest badasses, two of the biggest tough guys, left the world way too soon, both under 50. Gordy, I think, was 40, but, revolutionized the sport, if you ask me. And they're going up against two wrestlers that I think a lot of us think of them more as singles, and Big Van Vader and Bam Bam Bigelow, but they had a hell of a run in Japan, capturing the IWGP Tag Team Championship. They're going to beat you up, throw you around, do some moves that you'd never think a 400-pounder could do. They're going up against Miracle Violence, Big, Bad, and Dangerous. It's anybody's game. They both had a relatively challenging road to the finals, but they come in pretty okay. No major injuries, at least that we know of. What say you in the finals? The Miracle Violence Connection and Big, Bad, and Dangerous.
So I think this one, this is going to be, like I said, it couldn't have worked out any better. This match is something I would pay to see by far. I think this would be an all-out war. I think there'd be blood in this one. I think Doc and Gordy would have Bigelow and Vader busted open here in this one. They knew they would have to give them everything they got. Talk about backdrop drivers, Oklahoma Stampedes, pile drivers, everything they got. I think the deciding factor here is that Bigelow and Vader got that bye, as where the Miracle Violence just had another war on their hands. So I think eventually they would wear down, and I think Bigelow and Vader would be able to pull off the victory, probably after a Vader bomb and headbutt off the top rope combo later in the match, which close to 20 minutes. So Bigelow and Vader, I think, win the entire thing based on the fact that they just had a little more rest and didn't have to go to war in the previous round.
Wow, what a finale! I don't think you could have picked two better teams. No matter which way you slice and dice this tournament, you're going to get a pretty awesome final. Whether it was the Road Warriors or the Miracle Violence Connection or the Holy Demon Army or the Skyscrapers, it didn't matter. You were going to get 4 guys that are legendary at beating people up. And hey, this was a great one. So to recap, Big, Bad, and Dangerous, Big Van Vader and Bam Bam Bigelow win the first ever Dream Card Tournament. Thanks for joining us today for the Wrestling Life Support Podcast. I really hope you enjoyed this fantasy booking Dream Card Series show. We had a heck of a time doing it. It was great. If you don't mind, please subscribe to us with whatever podcast service that you're using. Like us, leave a comment, visit us on social media, Wrestling Life Supporter at WLS Podcast. I'm Jay Lauderdale for my co-host Donnie Mueller. Thank you again and have a wonderful day. We'll catch you next time.